mesa?
Sim, flan, por favor.
O vinho?
Sim,
Ok.
sim.
Tava bom?
Muito bom, muito bom. E o vinho também é muito bom. Sim, obrigado.
We are joined by a Renaissance man ordering his dessert course in Portugal. Welcome, Harry Mitsidis.
Hello. Hi, how are you? How are things there?
Well, I'm sure everybody's watching the U.S. with interest, so we'll leave it at that for the moment. I'm more interested in your view, your smile. You're clearly everything I want to be. All right, Nomad Mania is the big topic of the day, and also yourself. And why don't I tee it up? Why only 1281?
Why only 1281? Well, doing more would seem unreasonable to any normal human being, I think. I think when you approach anyone, even countries are too much, let alone going, to high numbers. So 1,200-ish sounded reasonably challenging, but not overwhelming, at least to me. So, that's a ballpark number.
And talk about the methodology. So I think there's a lot in the group that maybe have heard of the site, noodled around, but haven't dug into the philosophy behind it.
Yeah, well, what we do, muito obrigado. I'm just getting some excellent Portuguese flan. So this is really one to watch. And for those of you watching, I haven't had a restaurant experience apart from lunch today for quite a while, so I'm really ecstatic. Now, NomadMania tries to divide countries rationally, both in terms of how much they are worth and in terms of how much they're worth relative to other countries. We use 5 criteria, so we don't only look at how big a country is, we look at its population, its cultural diversity, and that usually benefits African or some Asian countries which have many different peoples living in them. We look at economic influence, so obviously the US or China get a very strong number there, and we also look at international tourist arrivals. So those are 5 criteria, and based on those we come up with some sort of algorithm of how many regions a country should have, and then we adapt that based on unique circumstances sometimes. So Bosnia, because of its quirky, difficult situation, gets more than the optimal number based on the 5 criteria would suggest, or Micronesia as well. That's the basic idea.
And everybody likes to pick holes in things. So what do you see as the weakness that your list has that you'd like to figure out a way to address, or maybe it's just it's not possible to optimize to perfection?
Weakness? What are you talking about? We have the perfect list. No, I'm joking. Well, there is no perfect list. I think first of all, we are actually going to be adding a few regions. So we've been at 1281 for almost 7 years. And finally, we're going to shed that, and we're going to be going up a bit. We're not deleting any regions. We're going to be adding a few. And that shows that, yes, we do recognize that there is still work to be done. I don't know about weakness. I think the biggest weakness is the divisions within a country. So based on the algorithm, I think we get a pretty good number of how many regions a country should have. But at the same time, that doesn't tell us where the divisions should be. And so in the US, this may be quite obvious. So you've got 50 states, so obviously you're going to put the states down. But, if you've got a country like, say, Czech Republic, where exactly do you divide it? And that's where I think we could do a bit more work. We've tried as much as possible. We've also elicited a lot of nominations from our users. So this is not a list that is made by me. We've got committees, and we also allow the people on Nomad Mania to suggest things so that this becomes really a community effort. So it's as good as it can be, and there's always room for improvement.
And Michael Nobbins was actually telegraphing your point about the new edition. So what can you hint at? When do we expect to hear about them?
Well, that depends on my programmer. I'm hoping that within June, this will be done. So yeah, if not within June, certainly by early July. So it's coming up very soon.
You mentioned the divisions, and so one, say the U.S. is very familiar to me, and as you said, it might be clear. If we take an example, I'm pulling out Kazakhstan as an example. You've got 14 divisions. Are those generally also by states, or how does Kazakhstan work as an example of your methodology?
Okay, well, Kazakhstan was one of the easy ones because Kazakhstan has 14 provinces. So although the optimal number of Kazakhstan is about 12, we decided to just go for 14 so that we don't, end up merging provinces just for one or two. So yeah, Kazakhstan was a very simple one. It has 14 provinces, and those are the ones that we put there. Actually, Kazakhstan does have autonomous cities, which are technically separate from the province. So the big cities like the capital, Nur-Sultan or Almaty, are administratively separate. But we haven't separated that because we believe that that's going way too far.
And then Daniel is asking about Pakistan as an example. So I'll read his comment. He said, the regions often seem based on administrative divisions in lesser known countries that leads to tiny regions and huge regions that are diverse. Can you use country experts to divide them in a better way? Thinking of Pakistan, which has all of Punjab as one region, population 110 million, versus Azad, it's scrolling, Kashmir, population 100,000.
That's not true. We've got Punjab down. Hola, there's a little girl here who's really chatty, and she's really interested in what I'm doing. So please let me not ignore her. Como está? Tudo bem? Tudo bem? Que tem, Ana? Ah, que bom, Ana. Ok. Ana, devo falar. Ok? Falamos depois. É bom? Wait, let me show her to you. She's really sweet. So there you go.
Hello.
So, olá. Falo com um amigo na América, nos Estados Unidos, muito, muito longe daqui. Ok?
Okay. Well, everybody jumped in.
Guys, sorry, that's the extent of my Portuguese. So actually, we divide Punjab. Punjab.
Daniel did realize, a few pointed out immediately that, yeah, it is too.
Yeah. So when we've got a region with a high population, like that high, and in a country like Pakistan, which has now 7 administrative divisions, that isn't enough. So for Pakistan, we've divided Punjab, and we've also divided Sindh in 2. And I think that is a much more reasonable division of Pakistan. So yeah, we do look at this, and we are likely to split regions accordingly. We do sometimes overrule administrative divisions if we feel that it makes more sense. So we've done that in Syria. So, for example, Palmyra is actually in Homs province. But the way we've divided Syria, because Homs is quite far to the west, whereas Palmyra is in the desert and kind of naturally would fall within an eastern region. So we've actually split Homs province based on its second level division. So we've looked at the counties of Homs, we've gone that deep, and then we make kind of a corridor which goes west, and then Palmyra, for example, is in the east along with other areas in the east, that kind of stuff. It's all quite involved. We've spent a lot of time on this per country. So, you can say it's a bit geeky, but ultimately we really try to get it right.
And so talk about the we. You've got ministries which you launched last year. You've got different people. So what does the organization look like?
You mean Nomad Mania?
Yeah.
Well, we've got there's a manager apart from myself. So there's way too much work for me to be able to handle it. Initially, I handled all of it, but now we've got a manager in Bosnia, Milana, and she takes care of a lot of the things. Obviously, we have a programmer. He's a freelancer, so he's not only our programmer, but does work a lot for us. We also have an assistant in Iran, so we really are international. So Hamid in Iran does a lot of work, background research. At the same time, we've got ministries. Our ministries are basically volunteers with a special expertise. So, for example, one of the ministers is what we call the operations minister. Estou falando, olha, estou falando com os amigos muito longe, muito longe. Here she is again. She doesn't give up this one. Look at her. Devo falar, sinal não é bom para mim. I don't know if any of the viewers speak Portuguese. Please forgive me. My Portuguese is quite elementary, but
we've got Andre that I believe is writing in Portuguese. Are you in Brazil? So I know you're in Portugal. I don't know where.
I'm in northeastern Portugal, quite near to the border with Spain. So I arrived today, and I'm really happy. So yeah, we've got ministers. We've got, for example, an operations minister who checks that the site is working well. We've got World Heritage Site minister who kind of looks at our World Heritage listing and checks that it's up to date and that, there aren't any factual mistakes. We've got a 193 minister, and he looks at we have a UN masters list, which is basically the people who've been to 193. And so the 193 minister checks this, tries to verify if the 193 is correct or not, etc.
Fantastic. And we've got, let's see. Danai says, your Portuguese is very good. She's a Spanish speaker, but she understands you.
It's a bit more Portuñol, which is like Portuguese-Spanish mix. But anyway, yeah.
And well, so the organization, Ron is asking, how can you afford to do all this with no fees, donations, no ads? Do you take donations?
Yeah, well, we do take donations, but this has been recent. For a long time, we didn't do donations. Well, let's just say that I have forsaken many trips in order to develop Nomad Mania, just because I believe it's worth it, because I think the community deserves it. And I get good feedback from the people. There's some people who really love it, and so it's a project worth continuing. We were going to launch a very big fund drive actually in March, but with the situation as it is, that's not going to happen. So, yeah.
And could you, then people are probably curious what you do in your non-Nomad Mania time and non-travel time in terms of your vocation?
Well, I don't do very much. I mean, if I'm not working on Nomad Mania, I'm traveling under normal circumstances. I live in the UK, about an hour out of London, in a small town called Chatham. But I'm there, under normal circumstances, I'm there about 10 days a month, more or less. I guess I'm a really avid traveler, so I'm always out there. Obviously, this has changed in the last few months, but I'm about to go out there again. And here I am in Portugal. So, yeah. I don't have another occupation now other than Nomad Mania. So I used to be a lecturer. I used to teach management and human resources, but now I just work on Nomad Mania, and believe me, it is a full-time job. Ana, devo falar, devo falar, e se não falo, é muito mal para mim. Okay? Compreende? She's really, really sweet. Typical Portuguese little girl. So yeah, there are a few people in this hotel where I'm staying. I'm not the only one, which is good news, Yeah.
I'm sure these kind of small places, the struggles they've gone through in waiting.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. Konstantin is asking back about the discussion of working on regions. He's saying Ukraine, is it already done as we discussed in Lviv last year?
It is. We activated that last month. So now the regions in Ukraine are as they were discussed in Lviv in September. Yeah, and in fact, the division of Ukraine was changed because it was a community drive. We had a meeting in Lviv in September. Many very big Ukrainian travelers joined this meeting, and as a result, they voted on how they felt Ukraine needs to be divided within the 9 regions. They really wanted the 10th region. Anna, it's all for land. So they really wanted the 10th region, but I said no. Ukraine has to only have 9 based on our division. That includes Crimea. So within those 9, they decided how it should be divided.
Fantastic. And to that, the frequency, it sounds like it's an ongoing project, a constant work in progress in terms of updating the list rather than
Well, I think, to be honest with you, Stefan, this edition now should be the last change. So we advertised that we were going to be changing internal regions last year. We solicited nominations and then we voted on those. So that took about a year to actually activate. But those were the last nominations we will take for changes of internal borders. Of course, even our optimal scores may change because geopolitics is not stable. Obviously, the world changes, and now we have huge changes as well. So we monitor this, and accordingly, we do what we can.
And I'm looking at your profile, and you are 61 away. Is that accurate?
It is accurate, yeah.
And I'm not seeing a huge number that would be under normal circumstances you couldn't reach. I see Gaza Strip, I see U.S. minor outlying islands like Wake and Midway. There might be an opportunity next year, but for the most part, they're ones that seem reachable. So, which are there? Are there ones that are really flummoxing you, or it's more the time and when the mood strikes?
I'm not. Everyone thinks I'm going to be the first one to complete the Nomad Mania list, and I can almost assure you I'm not. It's just not an aim, and I think especially now with this virus and being closed at home, I've realized that I actually enjoy trips in Europe so much more. I mean, the joy I feel from being in Portugal now is really indescribable. So I don't know if I am going to do the whole list. Obviously, there are places there I'm really eager to see. I lost a trip to Algeria, which was planned for April. I do hope to be able to do that sometime in the future. But I think the list is there more as a inspiration rather than as a be all and end all. It's there. I'll do what I can. There's some that interest me more than others. Some are really easy. I still have a region in northwestern Vietnam, Sapa, which is tourist 101. Like everyone goes there, and I still haven't. So, but yeah, I'll do what I can and go with the flow. I'm not really stressed about this.
All right, and it sounds like the translation I hear is you're not taking the Bouvet Island attempt anytime soon.
Oh, no, definitely not. I'm not going to try Bouvet again. And, well, NomadMania in general is against uninhabited rocks. Bouvet is there because it's really an external territory. It sort of earned its place just for its iconic status. But yeah, I'm really not enthusiastic about that. And I think, as you get older, I'm going to be 50 in a year and a half. So as you get older, I think you realize that you want to spend your time doing things you enjoy and you don't really need to prove anything to anyone. So, I want to really, I'm probably going to be returning to Portugal very often, and Bouvet can stay cold and windy, and, I know that it's there, and good luck with it.
And let's talk about your home country and a place I haven't visited and is quite difficult for about half of the people in the group, Mount Athos.
All right. Well, yeah, just half my home country. So yeah, just for those of you who don't know, I've got two passports. I'm Greek, British. I was born in London, but I grew up in Greece. My parents are, well, my father's Greek, my mother's South African. So Mount Athos. Well, ladies, I'm sorry, but you're not going to make it. You could perhaps cheat. Apparently, there's this beach which is technically in Mount Athos, and if you hike, you can get there. So, you might be able to go for it. But if you want the monastery experience, it's not that hard. I mean, for non-Orthodox, there is a kind of quota, but it's still doable. You just need to apply and get this paper. And with that paper, you just take a boat and go. And if you want to go for more than a day, you need to contact one of the monasteries so that you can stay there, because obviously there's no hotels. It's just monastery. It's really worth going there. So I'll admit I've only been for a day trip. I went with my father, but we did four monasteries and quite a bit of hiking. And it's a beautiful place. It's extremely serene because there's no people. And you've got the kind of rugged mountain and then the really beautiful sea. And interspersed, you've got all these different monasteries. Each monastery is quite different. So it's really a place worth visiting.
Fantastic. And is there a reason why on the Nomad Mania page, Southern Europe is the first region listed? Is there any coincidence?
Well, this is a good question. When we were developing the original list was developed by Artur Anusewski, who's from Poland, and me. I've never met him live, even now. So, and we exchanged about 400 emails in order to come up with the original list. I really don't know why Southern Europe ended up. Don't ask me, it just did. And, you must realize that at the time in 2011, there wasn't even the concept of a website, let alone that this would then develop into something relatively influential that people would follow. So, it was kind of like, okay, Southern Europe, and it stayed that way. So, I mean, now it's a bit late to change it. So, yeah, Albania will still be region number one, Yeah.
And speaking of developing a website, David is asking about, is a mobile app on the way?
Oh, gosh, we get that question a lot. I'm going to have to answer that depends on the donations. So, as you probably know, an app is not cheap. All the resources we have now are spent for developing the site. Going for an app would be beyond our means right now. And to be honest, Nomad Mania aims to be a charity. My vision is to be able to help people from developing countries travel. So to make this concrete, what I'd like to do, for example, is cooperate with universities in places like Afghanistan or Sierra Leone and have really good students from there who are poor have a travel experience, because I believe that would really impact their lives significantly. And I find it very sad that there are never any travelers from quote unquote difficult countries like that. I've never met a traveler from Myanmar in all my travels, and I bet no one else has. So if I needed to choose between creating an app or giving a travel scholarship, I would give a travel scholarship. And I think people who like Nomad Mania will learn to live without an app, especially if they understand that our resources are going for a charity aim. If we have excess resources, then of course we'll try to make an app, but I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, to be honest.
Excellent. And talk about the website development. It's a complex undertaking. You've recently made a number of changes, and it seems like series keep multiplying. So let's talk about the changes in user experience. What are the challenges you deal with, and what's your philosophy on the usability for the site?
Okay, well, look, as most of you probably know, Nomad Mania used to be the best traveled. And when we switched to Nomad Mania, a lot of the interface and a lot of what we had was the old, the best traveled kind of repackaged, but a lot of the stuff was from 2012. So we needed to do a lot of work to redesign it in order to become more modern. Technology develops. And so, yeah, that took a lot of planning in terms of design. To be very honest, the first version of Nomad Mania was launched without a designer, so the programmer did the design. And I mean, that's why it didn't look so good, in my opinion. So we hired a designer who changed how it looks and also how things are laid out. So I think now they're much better laid out in a more comprehensible way. And I have to mention Milana because she has experience in this, and hiring Milana as a manager was key to get this actually done, because on my own, I don't have the experience in design issues at all. So this is something we will look at all the time. So, from my perspective, the key is to make the site attractive and functional. There are always things that come up because it's an extremely complex site. I'm not sure people realize the layers there, but you've got, because we're a one-stop shop and we have all the major travel lists there, you're talking about a huge amount of stuff that goes on in the background, calculations of scores, mapping. We have maps that you can look back into your map and see how much you had traveled 10 years ago if you complete your profile, which means for each person you might have 15 or 20 maps. So it's extremely complex, and this is obviously going to be ongoing. We're going to always try to be as attractive and functional as possible.
Yeah, and I've just put in the comments for people the link to your fixtures page, which is one feature that we've had contact and wanted to highlight that people may not be aware of, that you're building out that resource as well. So it's not limited to lists.
Yeah, I think what people are not aware of is the existence of regional pages. So we've got 1281 regions, and each region has its page. And in that page, you can find a wealth of information apart from the series items that relate to that region. So if you go into, say, northern Portugal, where I am now, you can immediately find all the series items, which are the things that are worth seeing or going to per category. So I use that when I travel. So today I kind of saw, okay, what good villages, what pretty villages are in my area that are worth going to. And that way I may make travel choices. But in that same regional page, we also have a photo section. So this is based on our users. So the users can upload their travel pictures. We do vet every photo. So none of the photos are automatically accepted. We check them. If people upload pictures of themselves, we actually don't accept them for the regional pages, because the idea is that regional pages show the region, not people in the region, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely worth tooling around and just going menu by menu. When I was clicking around to prepare for this, I came across this Know Your Earth page where it's by
Oh, yeah.
quadrant.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Know Your Earth is one of the newer lists we added. This has been developed not by us, but by an Australian gentleman, Dr. Thomas Muller, and he very happily let us adapt it and then have it as one of the lists. I think it's kind of an interesting concept because it's purely geographical, and it no longer is related to countries as such. It's more related to space, or space within Earth, I mean. So that's kind of a different way of looking at travels. Um,
Looks fascinating. I'll have to fill it out and mention those series. So you mentioned some series and you mentioned the pages, and I think visually people will see it. But talk about the number of series, how you're putting them together, and as you said, as a travel planning tool as well.
Again, series didn't start out very consciously. The first series I made was just a little one with capitals, the Earth's capitals, so that was easy. And then kind of the idea of developing lists of things to see and do underneath categories that developed. So I don't really know how many we have. We have more than 50 series now in kind of general categories. One is called urban, where we put cities by continent, but also villages. One is called outdoors, and so there we have things like national parks or lakes or rivers, and we recently made treks. That's quite hard. I mean, researching the series is a lot of work. You want to make sure that the things you suggest to travelers are worthwhile, so you need to double check every entry. This is not always easy. We have one mega category called intellectual series, and that includes one listing for museums, one for castles, one for religious temples, and our last series now is called Vestiges of the Past, basically archaeology and ruins. So we uploaded those. We are coming to a close with series, so I expect that this year we're going to kind of finalize them, and then the work will just be to make sure that the entries are updated properly in the sense that the entries exist. Because, for example, we have one series which is shopping malls, and more may shut, in which case it needs to be deleted. We have one mini series called airlines, and now this is definitely going to be affected. So some of the entries there will need to be deleted. So this is again one of the aspects of the work that we do. I do think that the series bring Nomad Mania a unique aspect that other clubs of this type don't have to this extent, and they can really change the travel experience. I've had a number of people tell me that they make travel choices based on the things in the series, and I've done that myself. In fact, today I did, so I find that kind of interesting.
And I'm going to share in the links. You've even got a virtual travel to quarantine / desperation series.
Yeah. Well, this was Milana's idea, given that we were all cooped up. I'm like, sure, let's go for it. So why not?
And I think, maybe the bizarrium, the bizarre lists, I think that might increase during this whole process. Things only
Well,
seem to be getting stranger.
I love the Bizarrium one. It's quirky to actually research it, and what I love about the Bizarrium is the stuff I have found in the U.S. I promise next time I come to the States, I'm gonna have what I will call a Bizarrium tour, going to all these quirky museums. I don't know, Potato Museum, or there's a place in Nebraska called Carhenge, which apparently, which is like wrecked cars aligned like Stonehenge. I mean, I've got to see that. So that's going to be so much fun. Yeah.
We got a bunch of questions that have come in. So Ben saying, if the world was going to open for 14 days, then close again forever, where would you head to?
Oh, jeez, that's a tough one. For 14 days. You serious? Luckily, this is only theoretical. Um, you know what? Portugal. I love Portugal. I don't think you can beat it. I think Portugal offers the best travel experience. It's got mountains, sea, villages, culture, great food, really friendly people. It's modern enough not to be difficult to travel in, but it's really traditional as well. So, you get a sense of its history. And then, of course, you've got Madeira and the Azores, which are an experience in themselves. So, yeah, I think I'd pick Portugal.
Yeah, and we can extend it to the Ironbound neighborhood in Newark, near where I used to live, the Portuguese restaurants. I will say Portuguese is my favorite food in Europe. So.
Seriously? Oh, wow. Okay. Well, yeah, it's a good choice. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Portuguese. Yeah.
The seafood for my wife in particular, and the meats more for me. The everything is so hearty and delicious, and
Yeah, yeah. And the flan, which I'm going to start on when we finish. But
oh,
yeah,
you're right. You've
something to
been
look
neglecting
forward
it,
to.
and that's so many things there. I mean, there's stews and different things where a lot of times we to caricature some like French food. It's like here's a piece of meat on this end of the plate, and here's a vegetable on the other end of the plate,
No,
and
no,
they have
no.
no relation except they share the same plate.
Portugal is full of surprises. I mean, my favorite thing in Portugal is this melted cheesy stuff they do.
Mm.
That's divine. I don't even know what it's called. I don't think I ever asked, but that is really something, and I've never eaten it anywhere else. So yeah, it's Portuguese.
And along those lines, Debjit was asking about your crystal ball, say about post-COVID travel.
Oh well, look, just because I've traveled a lot doesn't mean I know more than you. All I'm gonna say is it looks like it's not going to be that bad in the long term. I mean, here I am in Portugal, and which has opened up. So I do think that we're going to be doing much more domestic travel and regional travel, at least this year. I don't see very many long hauls in 2020. I do think they'll pick up. What I do foresee, however, is that a lot of the luxuries that some of us liked in travel may disappear even forever. So I'm not sure that you're going to get many nice airport lounges anymore. I don't know when and if they will be opened again. And given the economic fallout of COVID, I think we will have to learn to travel in a different way, which may not be so glamorous. But at the same time, I think it will open up new opportunities, and for those of us who are brave enough to travel this year, we're going to find exceptional places all to ourselves. So, I don't know, people watching this who are avid travelers should probably seize the day, as long as it's reasonably safe, obviously, to see some great things without the crowds. Yeah.
I saw one person had a talking in the U.S. travel talking about the national parks, saying, "Oh, I'm going to head to so and so parks in the Southwest in the fall because I'll have them all to myself." And the next reply was,
Exactly.
Every one of my friends is saying that I'm heading to those parks in the fall because they'll have them to myself." So,
Yeah, but we need to remember that people are afraid. And I've always said that the prevailing motivation of the human race, unfortunately, is fear. And this shows now. I mean, I traveled to Sweden at the end of April. And I mean, that was the height of COVID in the UK and whatever. And I mean, people thought I was completely insane. But and I think in general, people are afraid. You're not going to get people traveling en masse this year. So, maybe that person's friends will go to the national parks because obviously a traveler's friends tend to be other travelers. But I don't think there are going to be many more people. Not this year, anyway. Eventually, well, let's hope for the best.
and Adam is asking about. He said the Azores just blew me away. Have you been to all nine, and which do you feel offers the most?
Oh gosh, no, no, I have not been to all nine. I wish. How many have I been to? I've been to four. I've been to São Miguel, the kind of main island with Ponta Delgada. I've been to Terceira. And last year, Nomad Mania has an annual conference. And last year, by coincidence, we had ours on the Azores, on Fayal Island, which is really great. And from Fayal, we all had a day trip to Pico, which is also a World Heritage Site. It's very hard to give a favorite because really each island has its own character. So I'm not going to pick a favorite here, and I'm really looking forward to doing the rest. Initially, we wanted to do the conference on Flores, which is the westernmost island, and we wanted to do it because technically Flores is not in Europe; it's in America. So it's on the other side of the plate. So two of the Azores Islands are actually in America, which quirkily makes Portugal the only country which is on three continents without having territories. That's a nice quiz question if you want one, because Madeira is technically in Africa. But anyway, yeah, but we couldn't go to Flores because we were 20 people and there was no accommodation for us because it is that small and that rural. So we opted for Fayal instead. If anyone has not been to the Azores, you gotta go. It's really, really a gem. A wonderful, wonderful place. And, you know, you've got so many islands that you can just pick one, and I'm sure you're gonna have a great experience.
So coming as from the United States, American travelers only very recently have started to get aware of well, you mentioned multiple continents, but we'll say European islands for the sake of convenience, that whether it's the Åland Archipelago, the Azores, Madeira, I mean,
Yeah,
Canaries
yeah.
even are not that well known to Americans. I mean,
You've even got direct flight. Well, not now, but you had direct flights from Boston to, or was it Providence? Anyway,
yeah,
but yeah,
Boston, Toronto, yeah.
Azores Airlines flies to, because there's a lot of communities from the Azores in those places in the States. So yeah, you've
Yeah, and
got direct.
last year we had Faroe Islands flights from New York as well. So that,
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
Atlantic Airways that started that service. And yeah, we have no idea what's coming up. Lily's asking any recent news on Bakeland. So I don't mention his name when you have the glass in your hand. So you can pass on the question if you prefer.
I will pass on this question if I may.
Yeah, that's fine. And
That's the only question I will pass on, you know.
yes. Daniel's asking, do you have a favorite travel log or book you'd recommend for those in quarantine with lots of free time?
I do have a favorite book. It's written by an Englishman, and I suppose because I'm half English, it appeals to my humor. It's called Beating the Moldovans at Tennis.
Hmm.
Read it. It's hilarious. It's about this guy who who places a bet to beat all members of the Moldovan football team in a tennis game, and how he goes about it. It's absolutely hilarious, and it's quite the travel book. I mean, it takes you to Moldova, obviously, and a lot of observations about Moldova. But it takes you to other places as well. It's really well written. It's amusing. You know, I like books with a sense of humor, so that's the one I would pick, and it'll definitely perk you up in quarantine. So yeah, go for it. I can't remember the author, but just remember it: Beating the Moldovans at Tennis.
I'm guessing there's not a lot of books with the same title. So with the title, it would be on the look the author.
Yeah, yeah.
You mentioned Algeria earlier, a trip that didn't happen, and Wasim is asking which regions is that to, and what are you intending to see there when you can?
Well, I was intending to do all Nomad Mania regions, so the idea was to fly into Constantine,
Mm-hmm.
spend a few days also doing, there's a lot of World Heritage sites there in the area, and I was going to go to Annaba as well. Uh, then I was going to fly to Adrar, and from Adrar to Oran, and then to Algiers. No, then it was via Algiers going all the way south. So it was going to be Tamanrasset and Janet, which has World Heritage sites and is really beautiful. And then on the way back, I was going to stop in Gardaya, the oasis town, and then end with 4 days in Algiers. It was going to be a 3-week trip in April. Obviously, I do hope that this trip will become possible. You know, it's hopefully Algeria will go nowhere, and eventually they'll open up again. So, you know, and when I do go, I will. In fact, when I plan the trip again, I'll probably end up making it a whole month rather than 3 weeks. So maybe that's a good thing. You know.
Fantastic. And let's go rapid fire through the region. So yeah, I'm sure you know all 1281. We'll just go by geography and pick out whatever pops into mind that you want to share something. So it could be obscure, it could be very popular but special to you, just whichever
Okay.
one word association. So we'll
Okay.
go down in the order on the site. Southern Europe.
Southern Europe, Vojvodina. You need to go to Vojvodina. That's in northern Serbia. Very underrated, generally unknown. Melting pot. Apart from Serbs, you've got lots of Hungarians, Romanians, Slovaks, all with their own language, all with their own cultures, still there. Before the war, you had a lot of Germans, really cute villages, and a mountain, Fruška Gora, which has lots of monasteries, the kind of Athos, Mount Athos of Serbia. So that's one I would recommend.
All right. Northern Europe.
Northern Europe. Well, since we're talking about unknown and not visited much, Bornholm. Bornholm is this Danish island, which is, if you look at it on the map, it shouldn't belong to Denmark. It should probably belong to Sweden or maybe even Poland, but it is way east. It's a really interesting island. You rent a car and go around it. It's got loads of old windmills, really nice ones. It's got dunes. It's an island where you can definitely have a few nice days. Very civilized, of course. Definitely worth a visit.
And real life is intruding, so I will need to step away for one moment. If you can answer Western and Eastern Europe, and I will be right back. So one
All
of you.
right. Go for it. Okay, well, I can do that. Well, Eastern Europe includes all of the obscure European Russian oblasts. However, I'm going to pick something in Ukraine instead. I think in general, Ukraine is underrated. People think it might be very flat, which it is geographically. But I find Ukraine culturally and historically very interesting, given that it belonged to so many different countries before it became what it is. I think if you need a car for these places, I'm a very avid driver, so I will very happily drive anywhere. And Ukraine has really taken steps to be more tourist friendly, to be more open, to kind of become more Western as much as possible, but you still get this kind of post-Soviet feel. So yeah, any of the regions of Ukraine are worthwhile. Now, in Western Europe, again, if we're talking quirky and not...
Good, because I need another minute. I'll be back again. Western Europe. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, Western Europe, I would say Outer Hebrides, because I've got to emphasize United Kingdom, which is often ignored or thought of as, too easy. I don't know how many of you have been to the Outer Hebrides. They are islands on the western coast of Scotland, quite mysterious. You get a real Scottish experience there, and you've got many different islands to choose from. It's not so much that there's specific things to see, it's more the general atmosphere of the place. So that's one that I think is under visited. And if I'm going to wait till Stefan comes back, in Western Europe, I can also suggest Friesland in the Netherlands. That's a region for us. We've got Friesland and the Northern Frisian Islands. So I'm not sure how many of you know that the Netherlands actually has 5 very interesting islands: Texel, Terschelling, Ameland, Schiermonnikoog, and one more which starts with the letter V. Anyway, so those islands are also worth going to, and I'm sure there's not that many international tourists there, so you're going to feel Dutch when you're there. So another region worth going to. So I gave 2 for Western Europe.
Perfect, thank you. We've got a repairman that we've been waiting for a month to come, so I had to let him in. So we'll quickly transition over to Asia, so Northern Asia.
Well, Northern Asia in Nomad Mania basically is all of Siberia. I really liked Tomsk, the city, so that's the one I'll pick. If you've got to pick a place in Siberia, I would suggest Tomsk. It's got a really nice vibe to it somehow. That's all. Cannot explain it. It's just it's got these nice old wooden houses. I was there with very good weather. Often these experiences are very subjective and they depend on, you know, things like the weather.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Tomsk. Yeah.
Beautiful wood houses there. Yep. Central Asia.
That's one of my favorite regions. That's a difficult one to pick. Central Asia. Well, you know what? I'm gonna go for Western Turkmenistan just because it's as quirky as hell. You know, Turkmenistan in general is bizarre. I was very lucky. I never had trouble getting my visa both times. Got it, no issue. Western Turkmenistan is by the Caspian, and you've got to go by the city, Turkmenbashi. There's this kind of hotel zone, and you've got all these massive hotels built in different styles, lit impressively at night, making them look like Dubai, and they're empty. It's really worth going to and seeing it and just saying what the hell, kind of, yeah.
All right. Eastern Asia.
Okay, Eastern Asia is China, Japan. I'm gonna pick Japan. I love Japan. And in Japan, I'm going to pick southern Kyushu, which includes Kagoshima, Miyazaki, those cities. Just because I don't know how many travelers actually go there. You've got castles, you've got really nice nature. It's a region worth going to. A bit off
Southern
the
Asia.
Which Asia? Western Asia.
Southern.
Sorry?
Southern.
Southern
Oh,
Asia.
I skipped
Southern
Western.
Asia.
Sorry, you're right. You've got the flow on your website. Western Asia.
Well, Western and Southern. Okay, well, Western Asia includes all of the Middle East. We call it Western Asia. It's actually Middle East. Which one should I pick there? Oof, that's again one of my favorite regions. I'm gonna pick Kurdistan in Iraq. I think that region, I mean, many travelers visit it because it's the easy way to do Iraq, but it's actually a really great region. It's really visitor friendly. The people are great. The food is great. And you've got these mountain ranges, which are really nice to look at. I just love that. So yeah, go to Iraqi Kurdistan, not because it's the easy way to do Iraq, just because it's really worth it. And Southern Asia, which is basically the Indian subcontinent, I'm definitely going to pick Eastern Bhutan. So again, most people who go to Bhutan, if they take the easy tour, the kind of 4 or 5 day, they're going to fly into Paro, they will go to Thimphu, they may do a little bit in the area, and that's it. Eastern Bhutan, well, that's where you need to go because that's where all the good stuff is, and there's not that many visitors. It's really mystical. It's great. It's great. 10-day tour in Eastern Bhutan, and you will, no matter what stresses you've got, you're going to be cured. So that's one to watch. You still there, Stefan?
Yeah, okay, I'm finally back. Sorry.
Okay. Southeastern
real life involved.
If you really want us to do this, yeah, I know the mega regions order.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Southeastern
So we were
Asia.
in Asia. Okay, it's finally taken care of. Sorry, everybody. Did we get through Southeastern Asia?
Southeastern Asia, Laos. I'm gonna pick Northern Laos because I really like Luang Prabang. I found it. I mean, I know many people go there, but not all regions need to be obscure in order to be worthwhile.
Yeah.
Northern Laos is just wow, as far as I'm concerned. No explanation needed. So yeah, that's the one to go to.
Okay, and I think have we covered all the? I think we covered all of Asia while I was back and forth. Is that right? Or did I miss one?
All right.
I think we're good on those. So let's head over to Africa, and we can be rapid fire again. It doesn't have to be obscure, but maybe one that just jumps to mind that is really special that in 1281 could be overlooked by anyone. So Northern Africa.
In all of Africa or just Northern Africa?
Start with Northern. We'll keep going. You've got your mega group.
Oh, okay. Well, Northern Africa includes Sudan. in our division, and it is obscure. I really liked Kassala. I mean, no one would go there other than to get the Nomad Mania region, or maybe to cross into Eritrea, which is a bit dodgy nowadays. But Kassala was kind of, I would say, a bit of a progressive Sudanese town, if possible. And it has this really nice rock formation where they've made cafes and a kind of entertainment zone. It's difficult to express it, but it was really cool. You went there and you had all these rocks and pleasant cafes with couples, which for Sudan is already quite advanced. So that's a lasting memory from Northern Africa. I have to say, Northern Africa is not my favorite part of the world. Although there's a lot of culture and history, I somehow get a bad vibe from those countries for some reason. I don't know why. Then I think it's Western Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, there's a lot of favorites in Western Africa. I would go with southern Benin. Benin is a bit of a cultural darling. So, again, if you're doing 193, you're going to go to Benin. But try not to just go to Cotonou, tick it off, and leave. You really have to go to the capital, Porto Novo. It's a really nice place, and it's got some really interesting museums. There's one museum by a kind of Brazilian emigre, because many of the Beninese then went to Brazil as slaves and then came back. So there's a very interesting museum which has all sorts of, it's a hodgepodge of memorabilia. You don't expect to see this in Benin. It's worth going to. And then, of course, you've got Ouida, where you've got Ouida is a bit of a, I would say it's the most cultural place in Western Africa. You've got a few really nice museums, a few really nice villas, and then you've got this monument to the slaves who had to go, which is kind of quite poignant, really. So there's more to Benin than initially meets the eye, and I think it's, of the countries in that area, it's one of the most visitor friendly. So that's the one I pick.
Central Africa?
Central, huh?
But you've got a few gaps in Chad and DRC on your.
Yeah, I do. A lot of gaps. And Central Africa is one of the hard ones. Okay, let's be honest. I'm going to go with the most pleasant one there, Principe. Principe is a gem. Sao Tome and Principe as a country is really delightful. You get the real African vibe, but the people are friendly and you can just walk around without being afraid. No one will hassle you. And Principe is just really cute, So again, one that not that many travelers go to necessarily.
Eastern Africa?
Eastern Africa, Eastern Africa offers a lot of different choices. But you know what? I'm going to go with Mogadishu just because I want to be challenging, but also because, you know what? I mean, people are like, you went to Mogadishu, are you out of your mind? But I actually liked Mogadishu. It wasn't about the danger. I thought it was great. I mean, obviously it's half destroyed, but you can tell that it was made with care by the Italians, and its location is unbelievable. It really is. The sea is gorgeous. Then you've got these bougainvilleas, all hues of pink and red in the plants there. So, I think it's a great place to visit. Of course, and your adrenaline is high, so you get kind of a double whammy there. Mogadishu.
Southern Africa, which I see the only gap is you have not been to Etosha in Namibia.
I have not. And you know why I have not? Because Etosha deserves time, and I have somehow always been quite rushed with Namibia, so I deliberately didn't go to Etosha so that I'm forced to go back and spend the time it deserves. But with Southern Africa, I'm going to go with Angola, and especially the southern region, the southwestern region, which actually is adjacent to Etosha. It's Namib is there, and that region is just very beautiful, naturally beautiful. Again, there's kind of rock formations, and they have a couple of plants which are indigenous, and you like sort of cacti, which you're not going to find anywhere else. And I generally have this attraction to former Portuguese colonies. So, and Angola, I went to Angola for the first time in 2008. It was one of my last countries, and it was dire. And then I went again a year and a half ago, and I loved it. It had changed immensely. So, given that it's relatively easy to go now with the new visa regime, you should all go to Angola. It's really, really an experience. It's great. So, we've done Africa, I think.
We have, unless you've arranged another. No, we are on to northern North America.
Well, northern North America includes Alaska and Canada. You know what? I'm going to get quirky here, and I'm going to go with go to Aleutian Islands and go to Dutch Harbor.
Yeah.
You know, many of you have been there. I think if you're American, you need to go just because it's so far and out of the way. I found that area very beautiful naturally. You know, I had some nice hikes there. I walked up and whatever. I rented a car and drove as far as I could. It's just an interesting place to be in.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
visited
my
last year as part of the Alaska Marine Highway System, the ferry one way and flight the other, and I'll certainly
great.
recommend that for an American. It's like, yeah, it's one of those moments of wow, this is America too. And
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the feeling. Yeah.
southern North America.
Well, that's the 50 states plus Bermuda. um, so you're basically asking me which state I like best, and I'm gonna go with Oregon. And that's it. I cannot explain why. I just like Oregon. I think it's very pretty.
Fantastic. Central America.
Um, Central America. That includes Mexico.
If you pick something Mexico, then you got to pick one that's not Mexico too, maybe for the yeah.
Well, in Mexico, I'm going to pick Zacatecas just because the town itself is really nice. And I don't know how many people have it on their radar, you know. It's not number one or number two for sure, but Zacatecas has a definitely nice vibe. Having said that, I generally love Mexico, and I don't know. I find it very sad that Americans are so scared to go there, because personally, I never had any problems in Mexico. Beyond Mexico, to be very honest, this is not one of my favorite regions. I'm gonna have to pick something in Nicaragua, and it's probably going to be the region we have, which includes the lake and Granada. Just because of the natural beauty. I also find Nicaragua more authentic than most because it's kind of a bit less touristy. Also, perhaps because of the politics, they're a bit less developed. So you know, you get a real feel there. Yeah.
Caribbean.
Caribbean, definitely somewhere in Cuba. And yeah, I'm going to go quirky and give you Isla de la Juventud, which I think very few people go to. I'm really, really glad that's a separate region on Nomad Mania because I probably would have never gone if it wasn't. And that's a revelation. Nueva Gerona is really an amazing town. So it's really just a pretty place. Worth going to.
Last year.
Sorry, I lost you.
Last year.
Okay, yeah. What I like about the museum in Nueva Gerona has some artifacts from the 50s, when it used to be called, it wasn't called Isla de la Juventud, it used to be called Isla de Piñas, which in English is Isle of Pines, and they had these great brochures meant for the American tourist advertising, you know, holidays on the Isle of Pines, whatever. I just thought those were so, you know, interesting historically.
Western South America.
Okay, Venezuela somewhere. Now, I Venezuela was one of my last trips, so it benefits through the recency effect. I went there at the end of February. I was really lucky. Made it. I cannot think of a specific region that stood out. So I mean, Venezuela is really misunderstood, and clearly people avoid it, and so had I for a very long time. But when I finally made it there, oh my God, that's just an incredible country. And the people have this energy. It's crazy. It's a crazy place when nothing works, but somehow the people make it work. And Isla Margarita, let me actually, I'm going to pick Isla Margarita because I expected it to be just another tourist trap, and it wasn't. Isla Margarita was really, really special. And because there were no international tourists practically, I felt I had it for myself.
All right. Well, we're getting requests for you to do the whole 1220 that you've been to, but before we get to Eastern South America, I'm curious about dividing South America east to west. I guess I default to the way airlines categorize them for awards, which is
Again, Stefan, again, these were done ages ago. So, in Eastern South America, I'm going to pick the Falklands. Um, uh, well, we divide the Falklands in two, east and west, because it's actually quite a big archipelago. The Falklands were one of my best travel experiences, and to be honest, they were accidental because I was meant to go to the Falklands for 2 days initially, and there was a complete mess, which I'm not going to get into. But in the end, the first time I did the Falklands, I didn't count it because I landed at the airport and left within an hour. It was a long story, and I'm lucky that I managed to do that. But because of that experience, in the end, I relented and went for a whole week on the Chile flight. And I do not regret that. That's an incredible place. I find it very, being half English, I find it quite interesting how the culture there is so English. It's more English than in England. It's like the original English culture. And then thrown in, you've got penguins, and sea lion. It just kind of completely blew my mind. So I think many travelers do the Falklands just on a cruise, and they spend a few hours maybe in the capital, and that's really, really not the way to do the Falklands. They deserve more. So
Yeah,
that's why
on RMS St. Helena, I met a number of people that echoed that said a week or two is with
yeah.
all the scenery and everything. It's
Oh yeah, yeah, they're worth it. They're worth it.
Australia is easy. It's like the U.S. You've got to pick essentially your state or territory. You don't have to compete with other countries.
I'm gonna pick the one that I know least, and that's Norfolk Island. And I'll tell you why. This is also the one region where I have a bit of a guilt about ticking it, because it's the only place where I've ever gone and left on the same plane. And as you may know, this is not a place which is served very well. What had happened then is that I was meant to be going to Tokelau, and that trip didn't happen. And I had a few days free, and so on a whim, I thought, well, I'll take the return to Norfolk Island from Auckland. But what happened on Norfolk Island, although I only had 50 minutes, the experience there was incredible because I rushed out. I told the cabin crew, okay, I'm coming back on your flight, so please let me get off the plane. You in America, you say deplane. That to me is not a verb. The British do not accept deplane. So get off the plane. And they did. So I crossed immigration first, and I went out like a mad person. And the first woman I saw, I'm like, please help me. I need the taxi. I need to get out and see. And she was like, what? But you know what? That woman and I are Facebook friends. We become really good friends. And she did help me. She called. There's only 2 taxis on the island. One of them was available and came within, say, 5 minutes. and gave me an express tour of Norfolk Island, including the penal colony. We whizzed through and I made it back. And I think, in a way, this is really a memorable visit. Of course, I really plan on going back. But I do remember it being extremely beautiful as an island. So, yeah, that's the one I
I felt like it'd be a great place to sit down and write a book because the climate's not really hot, but it is gorgeous.
No, no, and I mean many flights are cancelled. So I'm one of the good things about going back on the same plane is you're gonna leave because otherwise you may be stuck there. Yeah.
Pacific Ocean, Melanesia.
Um, Not one of my favorite regions. I'm gonna pick New Caledonia, uh, probably just because it's so far and yet French. And those French, they always manage to imbue whatever they've got with this really quintessentially French atmosphere. Um, I will pick the main island, although I didn't see the northern part, which is supposed to be more traditional. The local, the kind of indigenous populations live in the north. But yeah, I think it's an island worth exploring deeply. So that's a good one.
Yeah, it's so built up and cosmopolitan. That was a big shock to me.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I think, if you're French, that's probably quite a good place to live in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Pacific Ocean, Micronesia.
Um, Tuvalu, is that there? I think Tuvalu is there, or is Tuvalu in Polynesia? Oh God, forgive my geographical ignorance. Okay, well, Micronesia is
You're missing Yap, Nauru, Palau, Kiribati, Marshall Islands, Guam, Northern Marianas.
not my favorite region. Nauru, I guess, just for being, a dot in the ocean. That's a country. Uh, so, that deserves some sort of recognition. It's also quite a pain to get there, both visa wise and otherwise. So, when you do get there, you kind of feel vindicated. So, yeah.
And then Pacific Ocean, Polynesia.
That'll be Tuvalu. And that's because I really found Tuvalu interesting. Not just because of the runway that becomes a football court, but I just found it a very relaxing place. And I remember the excursion I had to the conservation zone was really memorable. Those islands there in the kind of atoll are really, really beautiful. So that is, if you do go to Tuvalu, it's definitely, when I went, it was $100. I guess it's probably more or less the same. It's really worth forking out that amount to go to those outer islands. Yeah.
Weather canceled mine. It's just the one government provider, and they either go or don't go that day. Yeah.
Oh well, next time.
Yes, next time, absolutely. It is a delight. Antarctica and the subantarctic islands.
Well, that is definitely not my favorite region. I personally, because I'm a sociologist, for me, people are the most important. And in Antarctica, there's no people. But you know what? I mean, I went to the South Pole in December, and we were really, really lucky because we got the tour of the research station. We were told that very few people get that nowadays. It's like 2 groups per season might be allowed in, and that was our group. So I'm gonna say South Pole because it's definitely a point of reference. When you go there, you're like, wow, I'm in the South Pole. This is a moment that you're not going to forget, and just the trip there itself. This is also more about the trip than the destination somehow. So that is worth it. Yeah.
And we will close with the Arctic.
Well, the Arctic does offer some surprises. This is a difficult one to pick, but I'm gonna. Let me see here. No, I'm gonna go with Greenland. And you know what? Just to make it difficult for you, I'm gonna go with Eastern Greenland. My experience there was in Tasiilaq. So what happens is the plane lands in a place called Kulusuk. That's where the airport is, and then you need to take a helicopter, because this Kulusuk is a small island. Then you take a helicopter for 5 minutes, which kind of takes you to the mainland where you've got Tasiilaq. Well, Tasiilaq, I was there, and it was just perfect weather, beautiful sunshine, really beautiful. In Greenland, all the villages are beautiful because the houses are all painted in different colors, and so you get this kind of panorama of colors in cute little wooden houses. So it's really nice. And Tasiilaq, I stayed in this really nice hotel, which is I think it's the only one. It's at the top of the hill, and it was very cozy. And from there, you had this really good view of the bay. So it's a nice memory I have from the Arctic with good weather. Yeah.
Wow. A fantastic, wonderful tour. I see that people have been taking notes. There's even going to be a map put together. I think Michael said he's putting together a map. So we've got.
Wow. Well, good luck with that, Michael. It's definitely very different places there. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be the Harry series, so we can.
Well,
Michael
you didn't.
putting them on a Google map, so we'll have that. We'll have that soon in the links, and we need to get you back to your flan. So thank you for joining us this evening, Harry.
Well, is it 9 already? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Stefan, for the chance. If you're not part of Nomad Mania, it's free, and we'd be really happy to have you there.
I got one question from Ted earlier about authentication. Who can be authenticated? UN and Nomad Mania territories.
Okay, careful. There are two terms we use. Authentication is not. Authentication is proving you're you.
Okay, the verification.
You get the tick. So authentication is just proving you're you. Verification is where you prove that you've been to where you say you are. In general, we verify people with more than 500 Nomad Mania regions and with around 190 UN. The reason is that we only have one person who does this. And if we started verifying people, with 150 UN, he would have way too much work. And it's a lot of work, actually, to verify people. So these are the numbers. On request, we may make exceptions, but, that really depends on Thomas and his timetable. I don't do verification. I take Thomas's word for it.
I can speak to his thoroughness, and we were actually miscommunicating for mine. I was uploading comments to the Google Sheet he had with notes explaining the pictures I was sending, and he didn't see the updates. And so he was reverse Google image searching places on the world just based on a photo without context. And he's like, yes, I found that hotel that you stayed at in Guangxi in 2003. And I said, no, it's right in the notes. I typed it. You could have looked at it. So,
bless him.
And I will say to people who take this on that, the UN is a pretty straightforward process for most of it, but think very carefully before agreeing to verify based on a list that may not have existed when you were traveling to places, because it is it's a fair process, but it's not an easy one.
We require verification for high-ranked travelers because we think it's fair. And at this point, most of the travelers ranked high have been verified, even for regions. So I think that is a success. We have deleted people for not wanting to be verified, and we will continue this. We think it's fair play.
Yeah.
And, it's true that people who traveled in the 70s may not have taken photographs and may not have their passports. We appreciate that. But Thomas has a way of knowing if someone is being legit. I don't know how he does it. He has this sixth sense. So, yeah.
I think we'll get him in a plate of flan for a future episode and get his.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Harry. Have a good night.
Thank you, Stefan. All the best. Yeah, all the best to everyone. Bye.